The cocoa trees grew behind the village like patient elders, their leaves wide and protective, their pods hanging low as if bowing to the earth. Every child learned their shade before they learned the road beyond the hills. The trees were older than most of the houses and wiser than the people who tended them. At dawn, the farmers walked out with baskets on their backs and soft songs on their lips. They spoke to the trees as they worked, thanking them for another season, apologizing when a pod fell too hard to the ground. Cocoa was not just a crop. It was a conversation between the soil and the hands that loved it. Among the farmers was a woman named Abina. Her fingers were always stained dark from cocoa pulp, a color that never fully washed away. She said it was the earth marking her as one of its own. Abina knew every tree by feel. She could tell which ones were thirsty, which needed rest, and which would give generously that year. When a pod was ready, it almost leaned into her hands. After harvest, the beans were laid out under the sun, spread carefully on woven mats. Children chased away birds and turned the beans with sticks, laughing when the sun grew too hot for their feet. The air filled with a smell both bitter and warm, promising sweetness that would never stay. Trucks came at the end of the season. They arrived clean and loud, their sides painted with names the villagers could not pronounce. The drivers weighed the beans quickly, scribbled numbers, and paid prices that felt light in the hand. The farmers accepted the money quietly. They had learned long ago not to ask why something that required so much labor was valued so little. The cocoa left the village wrapped in sacks, crossing borders and oceans. Along the way, it was cleaned, roasted, ground, and sweetened. Sugar softened its bitterness. Milk made it gentle. In distant cities, it became chocolate, smooth, shining, and wrapped in bright paper. People unwrapped it with pleasure, calling it a treat, a reward, a comfort. No one tasted the sun in it. No one tasted the soil. No one tasted Abina's hands. Back home, life continued as it always had. The village remained quiet and proud. When harvest money ran out, families shared what they had. Abina roasted a small handful of cocoa beans over her fire each year, grinding them by hand. She mixed the paste with warm water and gave it to the children, not sweetened, not softened. "This is how it speaks to us," she would say. The drink was bitter, but it filled the stomach and warmed the chest. It carried the strength of the land. The children learned early that sweetness was not always a gift, and bitterness was not always a curse. One season, Abina fell ill. She could no longer walk the rows of trees. On her last morning, she asked to be carried outside. She looked at the cocoa trees, heavy with pods, and smiled. "They will keep giving," she whispered, "even if the world never thanks them." Years later, one of the village children traveled abroad. In a small cafe, he was offered chocolate from a silver tray. It melted softly on his tongue. People around him smiled and called it delicious. He ate it politely, then closed his eyes. It was sweet, but it was empty, because the cocoa had learned long ago that its true flavor never survived the journey. It belonged to the land, the sun, the patient hands, and it was never meant to be tasted without them.